Good morning and welcome to this weekly market update from AGM Markets. Today is the 15th of August 2014. What I'm going to do today is go through some technical analysis on Euro dollar, cable, dollar Swiss, Aussie and gold. Just to review what's been going on in the markets this week and give some sort of outlook for next week. I'll not make any trade calls recommendations in this video. You do trade at your own risk. If you could please read our full disclaimer on our website, which is www.agmmarkets.com, that would be most appreciated. And for any new followers out there, we do have 3 moving averages on each of these charts. The red one's a 50 simple moving average, the purple is 100 simple moving average, and the gold is a 200 simple. Okay, let's have a look at the charts. So this is the euro dollar on the weekly. What's been going on this week? What have we been speaking about? It's been this fib here. So this is from the low of 2013 to the high of 2014. So remember, last couple of weeks we had the tests of the 50% and the 100-week moving average, and we did get some closes above. So I remember saying last week's video that odds will be for some sort of hold potentially this week, and then maybe over the next few weeks we get some sort of rotation towards the upside. But you can see here that the 200-week moving average has been capping euro this week, and we have had another pierce below of the 50%, but interestingly it has made a lower high, a slight lower high. So we've had the test of the 100-week moving average, we've had a lower high, and it is currently holding above the 50%, but it is looking quite heavy, and it is sort of struggling, this euro pair, to get any sort of a bounce up, and I'll show you that on the shorter term time frames as well. But that's pretty much the view on the weekly. I mean, what I've been talking about is if we do get any sort of bounce on this weekly, then keep an eye on potentially that sort of fib move there, or that smaller move there. But of course, we're still a way away from that yet, and it's certainly it certainly looks like it's not going to pop up and get that sort of move this week. But we do, I think we do still have some US data out today. So if that is weak, then it could do some sort of reversal, but I can't see it popping up that strongly. So let's flip it to the shorter term time frames and see what's going on. I mean, really, that 50, sorry, I'll just draw back the 50% level, because that's the key sort of support. And then you can see here on the daily, that's been the key sort of line in the sand. And also what's been the line in the sand is this 133.50. So in terms of sort of round number, you can see that 133.50 has pretty much been holding all week, and that's been the key line in the sand this week. You can see there we've had 6 daily tests. Well, it's over the last sort of couple of weeks, to be fair, pretty much throughout August. 6 daily tests of that level, and each time actually you can see each sort of 3 times it's done it, it's made a high low each time. So, but you can see last couple of days, well, we got that daily close above there, and then it came back below and closed below this 50%. So that's sort of been the mini sort of resistance. But you can still see this 33.50 has been the key level, and it does look like I think it will hold this week. If we do get some sort of daily candle close above this 50% today, then I'd not be surprised to see a quick sort of rotation over next week, perhaps towards that 50 day moving average, which I think sort of coincides, yes it does, with this fib move here. And the reason I'm taking that swing high is because that was the swing high from that move there, remember. It was off a 38.2% retracement, but nevertheless it's still a swing high. Sort of bears playing these sort of moves would be, I'd have thought, looking at that fib move first there. And it should be interesting if we do get there, because that 50-day moving average does coincide with that 50% level. So that comes in at 1.3516. So that's the view on euro. Let's have a look at cable. What's going on cable on the weekly chart? Same things we spoke about last week. The last sort of few weeks, really, it's just in retracement mode. So the last sort of 5 weeks have all been bearish candles, all red candles, all have some upper wick in them as well. So showing that sellers are coming into the market and continuing to push any sort of a brief bounce up here in cable. I think the odds are definitely for it to come down to this 50-week moving average here, personally. I mean, for a long time I've been speaking about this fib in terms of sort of overall context. So we had that strong uptrend in 2013, 2014, and it's been due some sort of healthy retracement, in my opinion, down towards these moving averages. And if we do get a quick sell-off, which it is looking like it's currently happening, we do have some GDP data as well, actually, at 9:30, second estimate quarter-on-quarter GDP. So if that's weak, we really could start to get a quick fall down there. But anyway, this 50% comes at one spot 60, pretty much bang on. So it's good to keep that in mind. And the other move, which I think I spoke about in last week's video, is this fib move here. So this is from the low of 2014 to the high of 2014. That 50% comes at one spot 67.21. So it has come down there this week. You can see if I just flip it to the daily, and it pretty much just smashed through it. That was the day when Carney was speaking. I think we had some UK data out as well that day, and it was just very, very heavy. It was very sort of dovish, not hawkish in the slightest. Sort of postponing any sort of hike in interest rates, etc., etc. So yeah, that was very bearish for came. And you can see it's just continuing to grind lower. I mean, I don't personally think this fib may hold. I mean, it could potentially sort of spike this 61.8 and then test this 50-week moving average, and then if it closes above. But of course, that's a long way away from it this week. It could potentially do that next week, though. So I think in terms of this weekly chart, this 50-week moving average definitely is something to keep an eye out for, in my opinion. And in terms of shorter-term time frames, it's still been quite a tricky one in terms of it. I mean, the daily here, nothing really sort of popping out. The only thing really in terms of just, I mean, I spoke about this last week, just the sort of the trend line resistance here, which is currently holding. You can see we're getting sort of like daily candles, multiple daily candles, sort of testing this level and just closing below, sellers coming in and just capping any sort of mini bounce. I mean, there hasn't been any sort of clear sort of fib moves. I think this may have been one here. Yeah, that was one there. I think you can see that clearer on the 1 hour chart. I'm just going to zoom out here. I mean, even that isn't the most clearest of fib moves. It's not exactly a clear swing high. These are the period separators here, pretty much of each week. So that was actually the high of last week to that sort of swing low of this week, and you can see we got that brief bounce up, and it held at the 50%. But you would have been a brave man to sort of sell it at that level, especially as Carney was coming out as well. So I think it was just a bit of coincidence that it held, to be honest. But in terms of any shorter term moves, and the only thing really for me is on this 1 hour chart, taking the high of basically where Carney came out and spoke to that swing low there of yesterday. So this is on the 1 hour chart. You can sort of see it there on the daily as well, on the 4 hour and the 1 hour, etc. So that 50% comes at one spot 67.49, which of course coincides with a nice round number being the one spot 67.50 level. So interesting move there if we do get around. But you can see after that big move, it's literally just been going sideways here on cable for the last couple of days. Nothing major to speak about, and no sort of clear setups. There only that one really being the only clear setup if you're sort of bear and thinking we're going to come further down here on cable. Okay, let's have a look at dollar Swiss. Dollar Swiss on the weekly chart is still continuing to chop around here. We do still have some higher wicks forming on this dollar Swiss, and that level comes in at the 0.91 handle pretty much. You can see it there. I'll just draw it up. So solid resistance, that's what's been going on. The key level on this weekly chart. The only other thing to speak about in this weekly chart, in my opinion, is this move here, the fib move here. So that's from the high of last year to the low of this year. Interestingly, because I mean, dollar Swiss and euro have been sort of correlating quite well, but recently it's just sort of staggered a bit. I mean, bearing in mind on this weekly chart on euro, the low of 2014 to the high of the low of 2013 to the high of 2014 fib move, you can see we're already testing the 50%, but on dollar Swiss, the mirror image move, we're nowhere near the 50% at the minute. We're still about 200 pips away. So, but I mean, similar to euro, you can say we're stalling euro at support. So dollar Swiss, we are stalling at some resistance here. I think this will be a 38.2 as well. But so odds are here really for some sort of mini retrace. You can see the upper wicks here, but interestingly, we do still have some lower wicks here on dollar Swiss. So do bear that in mind. But In terms of shorter term time frames, so for example the daily, what have we been speaking about? That fib move there, remember, played out nicely. So in terms of taking the low of that fib move and extending the high to the new swing high, it's all about that move for me personally. I think it'll be very popular amongst traders, and that 50% comes in at 0.8985s there, and that also coincides with a nice sort of 50-day moving average there as well, so do keep that in mind. In terms of shorter term time frames, so for example 4 hours, it's been quite messy, but the key sort of support you can see here is pretty much 0.9050. So, well, in terms of daily candle closes, it's pretty much 0.9047 there is the key support that's been holding, and it's been holding for quite some time. You can see there, lovely, I mean, pretty much 6 daily candle spikes below, closes above and holds. But you can see yesterday's daily candle was quite bearish, so I think we'll get another test there. I think we'll get another test of this level today, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But generally it has been quite choppy. I mean, if you just flip it to that 1 hour, it's very, very tricky there. In terms of, there's definitely no sort of clear fib moves there, but interestingly, lovely trendline resistance there, which has been holding. Where you can see 4 tests there, 4 big spikes. The last few have been nice sort of reversal candles as well. You can see that one there a couple of hours ago. Yes, it was a green body, but a lovely upper wick, and right off the trendline resistance and double moving average confluence there. So interesting, interesting chart, that dollar Swiss. Let's move to the Aussie. What's going on in Aussie in terms of the weekly? What did I speak about last week? Was this fib move here? Last week's candle, remember, there was a bit of upper wick on that, a bit of a lower wick as well, but it was a green body, so a lot of people think that is some sort of retracement candle. But you can see this week we have started to, it's just been quite bullish really. And what it has been bullish off of this classic sort of support that's been holding for some sort of time really. The 0.92s you got there, the 0.9220s. But in terms of this weekly, if you just bring it around the weekly closes there, you see literally line it up right where the lows of the weekly closes are. You can see that we pretty much tested that to the pip there at that 0.9233 there. So key support is currently holding on Aussie. So yeah, I think this sort of a choppy range still looks like it wants to continue. Bear in mind, I've been speaking about that last sort of few months really, this choppy range in between 0.95s, 0.9450s as well, remember, and 0.92s. So very, very choppy stuff on Aussie. In terms of shorter term time frames, it's been quite interesting in terms of fibs. Remember we spoke about last week. In last week's video we had this fib move, so I'm just going to zoom in actually to the 4 hour so you can see it a bit clearer. Actually no, let's stick it to the daily and just zoom in a bit. So in terms of the daily, remember we had, this was the first move here, and that held at pretty much the 61.8s. So then if you extended your low, that was the swing low there, remember, and then if you extended your swing low, swing high there, we had a lovely move off the 50%. So the next move there was to extend the low and extend the high, and then you can currently see where this was the next move to look at in my opinion. But we did have that brief sort of test of 50%, we had a spike there, closed below, then we had another spike of the 61.8 and a daily close below. You can now see this today's candle is already above there, so keep an eye on the daily candle close here. If we do close below the 61.8 or even below the 50, then it could be quite a bearish signal, but it does look like it potentially wants to come and test this 100-day moving average or even 50-day moving average. And in that case, I think you could pretty much extend the high here and take that that swing high there, because we could get some nice sort of moving average confluence there, especially that 50-day moving average as well. And also this 50% here of this move coincides with a nice round number being the 0.9850. So that's pretty much the move. The moves on Aussie. I mean, in terms of the 4A, you can see it's just sort of just grinding lower here. You can see a nice sort of close above the 50 SMA there, came back down, tested it and grinded higher. So interesting stuff in the shorter term time frames in terms of sort of moving averages there. There's still been some nice sort of fib moves here on Aussie if you found the sort of swing lows, swing highs. That was one move there. Now I think if you extend the high and take this low, then this may have been pretty much a sort of 50% there, you can see as well. So small moves have been playing out, pretty much of just sort of small fib moves in terms of like the daily lows to daily highs. That's a classic example of one there. It's pretty much the low of the day to the high of the day, a nice uptrend, retracement down, pretty much off the 50%, and nice little bounce higher there. So that's the moves on Aussie. So that's the forex done. Let's have a look at the gold chart. What's been going on gold? Same thing as we talked about last week in terms of the fib moves. The fib move that I've been speaking about the last sort of couple of weeks, that's really been in play in terms of this weekly chart, is this smaller move here within this bigger move. So remember this big move here, it hasn't really played out in terms of a fib, but that was the key 1280 support, remember. You can 1240 support, sorry, lovely move higher. So in terms of smaller moves within bigger moves, we have this fib here, which is still currently in play. Last couple of weeks candles, we've had the spikes below. Last week's one definitely lovely piercing below, close above the 50-week moving average, and you can see we've continued to, well, we've had a small sort of bounce up here. Interestingly, last week's weekly candle did have a decent amount of upper wick on that. And you can see this week's one, we've already started to form an upper wick, so do keep that in mind. The data will be quite interesting today. I'm pretty sure we have some US data out today, so if that is weak, I think it might be retail sales. If it's weak, then we should get a nice sort of bounce up here. I still think the odds are for a sort of move towards these 1345s personally, especially after that candle there. And that is quite a bullish weekly candle, and the fact that it sort of tested this 61.8, that was the 1280s, pretty much to the pip. I mean, a strong close below the 50-week moving average would sort of indicate that we'll get some sort of move higher, I think. Yeah, so in terms of daily chart, the same thing really. I mean, pretty much this week it's literally been going sideways. In between this tight sort of range here, you can see it's pretty much 1306s. And in terms of sort of daily candles, you've got, well, 1316s there, so $10 range pretty much this week. I mean, if we flip it to the 4 hour, actually, let's keep it nice and tidy into the 4 hour closes. You can see there, very choppy stuff on gold. But of course, I mean, if you're playing the ranges, there's nothing wrong with playing the ranges in terms of nice sort of scalps. There's a nice sort of 4 hour reversal candle there. Got a nice grind higher, or even if you flip it towards a sort of 1 hour, there's nice candles floating around. But yes, it has been quite choppy, so I would expect we'll get some sort of breakout soon. And it looks like, I mean, it's the reason I think it's going to break out towards the upside purely here. We're making higher lows here. It's a pretty simple stuff, and you can see that previous 1 hour candle, nice bit of lower wick. Could even start to get a pop as we talk. So that's the chart for gold. That's the view on gold, and that's all the charts done for this week. Hope you found this video useful. If there's any other pairs you want me to take a look at next week, then feel free to comment under the YouTube channel or send a tweet to our Twitter feed, which is at AGM Markets. Hope you have a great rest of the week trading, and I'll catch you next week. Thanks for watching.